Next Tuesday, January 21st at 6 p.m., the Watertown City Council will hold a special meeting to discuss a citizen petition calling for changes to the Watertown winter parking ban. The winter parking ban, implemented every year, usually around the first Monday after Thanksgiving, remains in effect until April 1st the following year or when it's lifted by the city. I'm now very happy to be joined by Watertown resident John Dunoyer, a Watertown resident and member of the group Watertown Citizens for Better Parking. John, thank you so much for being here in WCETV Studio B.
Thank you for having us. It's great to be here to talk about this.
I want to start off by talking about what specific changes that your organization proposed in the petition that it submitted to the City Council.
Yeah, so we proposed to end the winter parking ban. And we didn't go into all the permutations of compromise that could occur. Once you change a rule like this, other things may need to be implemented. And that is certainly going to be a part of the conversation. But the petition is written very simply, which is to end the winter parking ban.
So, how does the winter parking ban, as it's constituted now, affect residents?
The winter parking ban is an inconvenience for some. And it makes life nearly impossible for others. And there's a good number of people for which it's not possible. So, for example, someone who's maybe getting a start in their life, they don't have a lot of life savings yet. They're still renting. They're in Watertown. Typically, they're going to be in a two-family house. The two-family house is going to have a long driveway that's skinny, fits a long line of cars, a long line, maybe 3 or 4 cars. In the 21st century, people are using cars. And the cars are not useful if you can't keep them near your house. If you need to do things like take your kids to school, you need to go grocery shopping, you have a job. Maybe that job's not on the MBTA network. It's out on Route 495. Maybe you have odd hours. So we have people who, for example, may be on call. They're physicians, nurses, maybe they're soldiers. They need to be ready at any hour of the night. And so the parking ban has a strong impact on those people because it makes them unable to respond quickly to situations. Maybe they have a long line of cars in their driveway, and then the car that's blocking everybody in, it's the middle of winter, and now the car won't start. And so this person who needs to go respond to an emergency because somebody needs emergency surgery and this doctor's on call, this parking situation doesn't work for them at all. Property owners are taking their green spaces and turning them into pavement in order to accommodate more and more parking. Do we really want to be causing more pavement? I don't know that that's really terribly environmentally sound. When you have friends coming from out of town, you have someone who wants to spend the night. I guess Watertown assumes that we don't really have out-of-town visitors, and if we do, we really shouldn't, because they're not really making good accommodations for that. I mean, again, if you have an out-of-town visitor, it means that your holiday rhythm is going to be you're going to have to get up in the middle of the night to move your friend's car, or you're going to ask your friend to do that. And the town is aware of this inconvenience to the extent that it turns out that between Christmas and New Year, they actually lift the parking ban. And I think that, again, sort of shows the cracks in the policy, because if it is so vital to public safety, which we're going to get into, the reasons why they have it, I find it striking that they would forego public safety concerns for a 10-day period in the middle of the winter to accommodate the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about just that. So when you're talking to city officials and you're asking them, kind of what their take on the winter parking ban is and whether or not that it should remain in effect, what is the city telling you are the reasons behind why they do this every year?
Yeah, so the principal one that I've heard that is overt is they're claiming that without a parking ban, the emergency vehicles would be unable to respond to an emergency. The roads would be too narrow for the ladder truck, the ambulance to get through. So that's the reason for the parking ban. So I have some trouble swallowing that reasoning because I understand that our streets are too narrow. And I understand that we shouldn't allow cars to park in such a way where vehicles can't get through. And I understand that the way to do that is to, for example, only allow parking on one side of the street so that the street's wide enough. I mean, there's only so much width. So We do have a emergency access vehicle problem in Watertown, and it needs to be fixed. What I don't understand is why is this problem only persist in their mind in the middle of the night and in winter? Because we have fires year round.
Have you studied other cities,
Mhm.
towns, neighboring communities to see what kind of policies they have in effect?
Yeah, so the other big reason for the parking ban is this idea of snow removal. All right, so if you're going to remove snow, it's a lot easier if the cars are not on the street. Again, that one, it doesn't, to me, doesn't really fix the problem to have an overnight winter parking ban for the snow removal. As a great example of this is we just had the last snow event we had was not really that plowable, but we had some snow. Well, the snow started in the morning and then it ended at the end of the afternoon. So that means that all the people who were inconvenienced by, trying to get their car off the street in the middle of the night, then brought their cars back out in the morning because they have to, because we're told the lot can't be used during the day. Therefore, all these people brought their cars back on the street right when the snow started and would have made, if it had been a bigger snow event. The solution to snow removal in the winter is what Boston, Cambridge, Somerville has employed, which is a snow emergency. And Watertown does this on occasion, where if we're getting a big forecast, you get a robocall and they ask you to put your car somewhere else. And to me, that's a very common sense solution. I think we have sufficient amounts of parking in places like the Arsenal yards and many other areas. And then I have plenty of space so I can help my neighbors. We can help each other get the cars off the street, get the snow removal done, and then move on. Now, we haven't had any plowable snow yet this winter, and we didn't have any plowable snow at all last winter. So the other issue here is that climate's changing. When we get moisture, usually the temperature rises. We haven't really had any snow events. And I'm certainly predicting that we are going to have them, but they're so rare that to, again, have a draconian rule that makes life difficult for so many people for a 4-month period on the off chance that something happens, which it didn't happen last year, nor has it happened yet this year, seems incongruous to me.
As I mentioned, Tuesday, January 21st, 6 o'clock, special city council meeting at City Hall. What are you encouraging residents and members of the community to come and say or do during that meeting?
Yeah, so what I'd like to say to the Watertown citizens is that if any of you care about this issue at all, if you stand on one side or the other, then please come to the meeting, because if this meeting happens and we have a small turnout, then that's just going to tell the city council that everything's just fine, let's leave it as it is. Jean Dunoyer is just a squeaky wheel and we don't have to pay any attention. So my vision is that everyone will come with their cousins, their children. I don't know if they can bring their dogs. Every person will be granted the opportunity to spend 2 minutes at the podium. And so for that, I hope that a good number of people can come out and speak about their personal experiences.
John, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Actually, there is one important thing I wanted to bring up, which is I feel that this is a social justice issue. This rule is rather draconian, and it does not affect everyone equally. For the people who live on properties with more land and who have more privilege, this rule does not really affect them, and they may not care one way or the other. But for the vast majority of people in Watertown who have, median salaries, working class jobs, they can't afford an additional $300 a month to go pay someone to park their car somewhere. And I think that it's an unfair law that unjustly impacts those who are the most vulnerable, and that's, I think, something that the government should take a look at, because I think the government usually tries to help people out, and then this one's really not helping.
All right, John, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.